בשם השם נעשה ונצליח, שיעור תורה, ברוכים הבאים, שבוע טוב, חודש טוב to everybody. We're back continuing our series of the Jewish HaShkafa, this Baruch Hashem, this monumental series based on a sefer by the Chazon Ish, Sefer Emunah V'Bitachon. We are, Baruch Hashem, already 70 shiurim into it, and we're going to continue, BeEzrat Hashem, learning the extraordinary wisdom of the Chazon Ish, of how he explains the Torah to us week after week. We have a lot to catch up. It's been about a month or so since our last installment in the series, but BeEzrat Hashem will continue doing it each week. As a update for everybody on the events and everything else, we'll go into a second, but just so everybody knows, again, we have to remind ourselves and everybody that these shurim are not for naught, also always for the sake of helping Am Yisrael do tshuva, and also for the merit of all the righteous people that continue to help us, continue to contribute their time, their money, their efforts to help us do everything. So this year will be for refuah shlema for Rabbanit Levana Bat Sarah, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Avi Mori David ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, and also for Atzlacha Rabba for Marsha bat Julie, Ayla bat Marsha, Samuel ben Marsha, Cephas ben Marsha, Alexander ben Marsha, Louis ben Marsha, and all of Am Yisrael and all of the righteous Noahides that continue to do everything possible to live the truth and spread it everywhere they possibly can. And also for refuah shlema and atzlacha rabba for Naomi bat Sarah and Natan ben Avraham. הקדוש ברוך הוא יברך אותם בכל מכל כל, חיים ארוכים שלמים מלאים תורה מצוות וגמילות חסדים. So last week, Baruch Hashem, we had a extraordinary event. Was a Baruch Hashem, a lot of chizuk, some extraordinary, unheard of chidushim that, at the very least for this generation, that haven't been heard before, of things that are happening in this world and things that unfortunately may be coming in the very near future according to our Torah. And unlike many of the messianic lectures that we ourselves have discussed in the past, and surely many others have discussed that talk about war, talk about destruction, really one of the main things that we discussed is really has nothing to do with the war and the destruction, but rather the morality crisis that we have in our world today. A morality crisis unlike any other. Anyone that hasn't watched the shiur from last week, highly recommend you stop whatever you're doing and actually go watch that shiur, simply because it's spiritual atomic bombs to the Yetzer Hara that can help a lot of people, because we have last week's parashat Achrei Mot and this week's parashat Kedoshim both having everything to do with it. If you notice, for anyone that already read the parashat Kedoshim this week, you'll notice that the parashat starts with Kedoshim Tiyu Ki Kadosh Ani, a similar way to how the parashat Achrei Mot started with the issues of Kadusa, holiness, where initially it was in regards to the holiness of the servitude of HaShem in the Mishkan, in the Bet HaMikdash, that had to be put on stop because the sons of Aaron, HaKadosh Baruch Hu killed them, and this was in essence to give us a very clear reminder that even during the most holy times, during the most extraordinary times, there's always judgment there, as I heard Rav Eliyahu ben Chaim Sheikhye say a story by the Magid Miduvna, when he was asked how come HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to kill these two tzaddikim. They were two tzaddikim, the sons of Aaron, in very, very high levels. And of course, there are different reasons that the Chachamim say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu killed them, and anytime we see that the Chachamim give multiple reasons for something, we see that each one of the reasons is not necessarily strong on its own. So Chachamim say it could very well be all of them, but nonetheless, the question still stands of why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu decide to do it on this day? Why not the day before? Why not a day after, a week after? We know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is merciful. We know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is patient. Why not have mercy for another day or patience for another day? Why today? And the Magid Miduvna said that there was once a king that vowed to build the best hospital in the world, and the best city in the world, and the best business in the world, all in the same place. And he told his people that in this place we're going to have everything the best. Anyone that has proofs that it's not the best, show it to me and we'll make it the best. So after some time of building this place, the city was ready and the people were enamored by it. All the shops were beautiful, all the houses were beautiful, everything was unbelievable. But they came to the king and saying, listen, as great as everything is, there is one thing. You said that you're going to build the best hospital in the world, but the best hospital in the world, although it has the best technology and all up-to-date medicines and so on, it doesn't have the best doctor in the world. And the king says, you're right, we have to get the best doctor in the world. So they investigated and found out that the best doctor in the world is in another country. The king sent his messengers over there to give him an offer that he can't refuse. Lots of money, lots of honor, to please join them in the best city in the world. And so the doctor accepted it. The king traveled to that city to accept him, to give him the respect that and the encouragement to come and move his whole family and everything to this new city, to the best city. And on the way back to this new city together, the king and the doctor are sitting next to each other, and on the boat. And somebody on the boat gets a little bit cold. He starts sneezing. So the king says to nudges the doctor, "No, come on, you're the best doctor in the world. Go heal him." The doctor gets up, takes something out of his bag, gives it to the guy that's sneezing. And suddenly you see the guy's condition deteriorate dramatically. Everybody, all the other passengers on this boat are shocked. What's going on? We thought this is the best doctor in the world. He made this guy even sicker. And the king is even more disappointed. He says, I don't understand. You're supposed to be the best doctor in the world. Even my grandmother can heal somebody that's sneezing. You can't? He says, Your Highness, I did it on purpose. Well, explain yourself. Why would you make the guy sicker on purpose? And the doctor says, I noticed how much honor all of these people are giving me, calling me the best doctor in the world, the best doctor in the world. And I got concerned that if they think, if I'm the best doctor in the world and I can cure all ailments, they're going to take things to an extreme, to the point where they themselves are no longer going to protect themselves from things that are minimal. They're no longer going to watch the weather. They're no longer going to watch the way that they behave. And they're going to start doing things that are so minimal that they themselves are going to be making themselves sick. So in order to eliminate that, I wanted to show them that even I, the best doctor in the world, there are certain things that I can't do. Certain things that I can't do. Comes the Magid Miduvna, and he says to us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us to know that there's a holy day. There's the first Bet HaMikdash, if you will, the Mishkan, the Bet HaMikdash of the desert, the only one that was never destroyed. But at the same token, he knew that Am Yisrael is going to see that, this Mishkan, we bring a korban in the morning for the sins we did at night. We bring a korban in the afternoon for the sins we did in the afternoon. We bring a korban at night for the sins we did in between. So in so many words, there's always a sacrifice. There's always a korban that's going to fix all of the sins. What could happen? People could start sinning non-stop and say, listen, there's going to be a korban in a few hours anyway, so don't worry about it. So we wanted to make sure that we know there's even some things that even the korban is not going to help you. Why? Because the Mishnah in Avot says, "Omer echtav ve'ashuv, en maspikin beyado la'asot tshuva." A person that says, I'm going to make a sin and then do tshuva. I'm going to make a sin and then do tshuva. Meaning he intentionally goes into it saying, I'm going to make a sin because I know that there's a mitzvah to do tshuva. I know there's a mitzvah to do tshuva. So therefore, I'll just make the sin and then I'll say I'm sorry to Hashem. I'll make a sin, I'll say I'm sorry, I'll donate some money. The guy has a bunch of money in the account. He figures, listen, what does it cost? If I waste seed one time, what is that? $400, $500, $1,000? No problem. Okay, so, you know what? How much do I have in mind? You know what? I can do 10 times and then I'll do tshuva. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no, Habibi, you can't do things like that. You can't go into it saying, I'm going to make the sin because I know that I can do tshuva, because even the Beit HaMikdash sacrifices cannot help you in certain things. So that's also why HaKadosh Baruch Hu killed Nadav and Avihu at the time of this extraordinary celebration. Even more so, we see that this week's parashat Kedoshim continues that intense teachings that ended off last week's parasha with warning against all of the world's horrible sins of incest. A person, with a sibling, a parent, a child, grandkids, all types of horrible things that most people look at this parasha and say, this has nothing to do with me. He's not thinking about his daughter, he's not thinking about his wife's sister, he's not thinking about all these different things. And the reality is that people think, oh, this has nothing to do with me. And he says, you know what, I'm not even, perhaps I could skip this. But then he wakes up to this week's parashat Kedoshim, and the parasha just continues it, where it says, Kedoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani, you be holy because I am holy. And then it continues the teachings of the issues of immorality, and again ends off the parasha in the very same fashion, but this time saying the person that will sin with his sister, death penalty. Person that would sin with his mother, death penalties. Person that would sin with his daughter, death penalty. With her son, death penalty. Any of these immoralities, death penalty. Homosexuality, death penalty. Meaning it is the same thing, but even with a stamp of approval from the Torah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to kill those people. And at the time of the Beit HaMikdash, the time of the Sanhedrin, it would actually be the Sanhedrin that would kill these people. And then the parasha ends off in the same fashion, saying that you have to make sure to observe all of these decrees and all of the ordinances and perform them. Then the land to which I bring to you to dwell in will not throw you up, will not disgorge you. Do not follow the traditions of the nations that I expelled from before you. Literally, almost word for word, the same last paragraph as we had in last week's parasha. Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu, first of all, the first question is, why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu repeat the same thing twice? We already know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't put anything extra. There's nothing extra in the Torah. That's question number one. Question number two, we see that really the parasha of last week, Achrei Mot, really it's the last third of the parasha that talks about the issues of immorality. Why not just take the last third of the parasha, combine it with parashat Kedoshim, so that way you have Achrei Mot ends with the issues of sacrifices and the shchita and things like that, and then leave all of the immorality to parashat Kedoshim. Just do it that way. Chachamim say there's a couple of reasons. Number one reason, because since the whole issues of immorality is such a horrible, horrific issue, Chachamim did not want to start off a parasha already with punishment. You want to start off with something positive, as in instructions to be good, to be holy, and then go into the trach. Just like sometimes you have to start a lecture, the Chachamim say, sometimes you have to start a lecture with a joke. Why? Because you start a lecture with a joke, perhaps it opens up people's minds, they get more comfortable before you give them the tach on their head to make them remember all of the sins that they thought about doing instead of coming to the lecture. So that's one reason. Another reason is, which is even more pertinent, is the fact that the issues of the sacrifices, the issues of all of the most extraordinary things that we think of as far as holiness is concerned are not necessarily the most holy. Because the holiness, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls holiness, is not the sacrifices, but rather the issues of the intimacy between a man and his wife, and also the issues of shchita, the meat that a person eats. This is what the Rambam writes in he calls Kedoshim in his Mishneh Torah. It's the issues of the meat, and also the issues of, referring to the slaughtering, and also the issues of intimacy between a man and his wife. Now, here we see, Rabotai, that the sins that were discussed in last week's lecture, that were mentioned in these two parashot, are things that in the past, and for many of us even in the present, seem like a faraway sin that's not relevant to us. But the truth be told, as the Or HaChaim says in parashat Shmot, in Sefer Shmot, parashat Shmot, he says that the generation before Mashiach will reach the highest level of impurity, the worst condition ever known to man, worse than Sodom and Gomorrah, worse than the generation of Noach, worse than anything out there that we've ever seen before. And the reality is that we've seen a lot of bad stuff in the past. We've seen homosexuality, we run rampant in past generations, and we see it in this generation. Some people think that the whole issue of sex change, a guy wanted to be a girl and actually doing a surgery in order to change his gender, thinking that that's going to change him, and that's a new thing. The Even HaEzer already writes about it 800 years ago, of how there are certain people in his generation that were doing it, meaning that this was already found in the time of the Gemara, in the time of previous generations. There's nothing new under the sun. Absolutely nothing new under the sun. Even more so, the issues of incest are not new. We find that also in the Torah. The sons of Esav committed incest, and many, many other stories in the Torah that talk about all of these different abominable actions that people have that actually are celebrating today. What will change at the time before Mashiach? The fact that this will become standardized, normalized, where just like when I was a kid, it was abnormal for somebody to be homosexual, yet 40 plus years later, it's now celebrated to be a homosexual, to the point where they have marches on a weekly basis celebrating all of the abominable acts that they do in their own private bedrooms, and now they even do it in the streets, so much so that they promote it to children. But this has already happened. What could get this worse? What we believe is what the Torah is saying here. The Torah is saying that the worst possible thing is when we start acting like the nations that impurified themselves, that made themselves full of tumah to the point that the land vomited them out, which is the issues of other immorality, aside from just homosexuality, also the issues of incest and so on. So now the wicked that are always around, each time we discuss the issues of morality, whether it's the movie of Tikkun HaBrit, or it's one of the lectures, or it's another clip that comes out of it, the wicked always hate it with a passion, and always make all types of foolish comments saying, oh, well, perhaps he's the only one that's talking about it in the English language, because maybe that's his problem, so he's projecting, or maybe this, or maybe that. The truth is, when you see the amount of sources that exist in the Torah to discuss this topic, you'll see that it's actually ignorance to think such a thing, so much so that literally every single Chacham that wrote a significant amount of Torah had a certain section of his Torah discussing this subject in one way or another. If you're talking about the Gemara, it's practically in every tractate in the Gemara, the issues of morality show up. This, by the way, as a side note, is one of the reasons why Chachamim say that women should not be learning Gemara, because there are certain issues of morality that are not good for women to read about. For different reasons we'll discuss another time. There are many, many Chachamim that talk about the issues of morality, because this is what distinguishes us from the nations. That's what makes Am Yisrael Kadosh. That's what makes us holy. So when a person is teaching you what you are already supposed to know, it's important for a person to see, wait a minute, why am I hearing it? Not why is he teaching it, but why am I hearing it? Why am I reading it in the book? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu think that it's so important for me to see this in a book? Why didn't I see the issues of Shlom Bayit? Why didn't I see the issues of Lashon Hara? Why didn't I see an issue of tzedakah? When I read a book, I see this. Perhaps HaShem is talking to me. Perhaps HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to strengthen me to become holier than what I'm supposed to. And again, if a person looks at their Sidur or their Chumash, at their Gemara or their Sefer MUSSAR or Halacha, they will always find the topic of Kedusha as something that takes a significant amount of places in the Torah, especially when you're talking about the Hebrew language and Sfat HaKodesh. But even in English, you will find it in many, many Sfarim if you know what to look for. The key is to know what we're seeing and why we're seeing it and why the Chachamim are talking about it. Whereas when you see that the world today, things are so upside down, many times people like to judge the judges. They hear something that the Chachamim say, and immediately they say, oh, this is not relevant to this generation, or this is too strong, or you're turning people off, and all types of other nonsense. And as we said, there's nothing new under the sun, and that's the part of the Chazon Ish that we'll discuss today. As the Chazon Ish has taught us over the last several lectures, that the judges, the Dayanim, the Chachamim, were people that were unique people that not only had a lot of Torah, but also a lot of experience, and had to be put in a different caliber of people, where they could no longer be judged in the same fashion as an ordinary Jew. Why? They think different, they act different, and they simply perceive the world in general differently than the average person. But of course, the people that are not familiar with what a Chacham is will not understand why the Chacham has to be judged differently and viewed differently. And this will also be quite a novel idea for them altogether, because they figure, what's the difference between me and you? You read more books than I did, fine. So that means that if I read the same books, that I will be in the same level. Or if I kept Shabbat and I kept some mitzvot, I will be the same thing. And it's not necessarily quite so. So the Chazon Ish has told us that when it came to judgment, when it came to deciding certain things, the Torah is so strict when it comes to certain things, and is so careful when it comes to certain things, that there are a lot of things that are black and white, but there are certain things that were left to interpretation. And that's where the Chachamim came in order to clarify certain things, in order to make sure that people know this is what needs to be done, and also to put a fence around the Torah in order to protect us from committing some of these very, very big sins. Now, of course, when you talk to the average person out there that does not know a lot of Torah, but pretends that he does, or pretends that she does, when they hear about rabbinical mitzvot, immediately they think that this is not as important as the biblical mitzvot. But then when you tell them, but if you actually look at the actual halacha, if you look at the Gemara, if you look at all of the real sources that talk about the rabbinical mitzvot, you'd be surprised to know that the biblical mitzvah, the mitzvah from the Torah, if somebody forsakes it, if somebody violates it, then there are different punishments from it. Sometimes it's getting whipped, sometimes it's a death penalty, sometimes they have to pay a fine, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to the rabbinical mitzvot, it's always death penalty. It's always death penalty. Even the smallest thing, what people don't even think is a big deal, is death penalty. Now, the average person doesn't really understand why this is the case. Why this is the case? Comes Rabbi Yaron. Rabbi Yaron was a Ish Kodesh who not only knew an extraordinary amount of Torah, he was a Talmid of the Ben Ish Chai, but he is one of those people where when the heretics say, oh, how do you know about Gehenom? Did anybody go there and tell you about it? He's one of those people that can say yes. He's one of these people that spoke to people that were in the other parts of the world. We're in Gehenom, we're in Kafakela, and there are witnesses to these stories. It's not just him. One of the other Talmidim of the Ben Ish Chai was with him, that in the introduction to the Minchat Yehuda, or in Hebrew it's Ruchot Mesaprot, they talk about how every one of these stories that are mentioned in this book had eyewitnesses. It's not just Rabbi Yaron writing his own personal journal and telling you what he saw, and there's really no witnesses. Every one of these stories that were things that they had witnesses, eyewitnesses. And his Talmid, or his Chavruta, I would say even, was with them throughout all of them. So the beautiful thing is here is Rabbi Yaron not only deals with the mystical, supernatural, other parts of the world, but also writes about the basics, some of the basics. And he says that when it comes to the rabbinical mitzvot, what people don't understand is they're important is simply because they don't understand how extraordinary the Torah is and how important it is for them to observe it. And he says it's like somebody that goes to, gets sick, and he goes to the doctor. And the doctor tells him, listen, you need to take these herbs, go buy these herbs. This is the exact quantity of herbs that you need to take. This is the amount. You have to crush them. And then every day, take exactly a spoonful. After you've crushed them, you've liquefied them. Take a spoonful of it, and every morning for the next 10 days. But you have to be exact, you have to be precise. It has to be a spoonful, nothing more, nothing less, and it has to be the exact measurements that I'm telling you. So the guy listens to the doctor. In those days, they didn't have the pharmacies that you have in every corner of the world today. In those days, people would get the prescription from the doctor and then go buy the herbs in the market and, in essence, become their own pharmacist in the house. The guy goes, buys the herbs, his friend goes along with him, goes home, starts crushing the herbs, measures the exact measurements that the doctor says, puts everything in the water to liquefy everything, and then he puts everything in a jar because he has exactly enough for those 7 or 10 days that he needs to take it. And he puts it in a jar. His friend says, you fool, the doctor never told you to add a jar to the medicine. What are you doing? You're ruining the medicine. The patient says, no, you're the fool. The doctor didn't have to tell me to put this into a jar. He assumed that I already know that I need to put it into a jar in order to protect it. So I'm able to consume it over the next week. Because without the jar, the entire medicine would go bad. The entire medicine would be useless in a short period of time. Rabbi Yehuda says the same thing with the rabbinical mitzvot. The rabbinical mitzvot are the jar. You have a precise prescription from the Torah of what to do and what not to do. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you do exactly this, you will live. If you don't, the punishment is severe. Severe to the extent where a person can not only lose their life, lose their wife, lose their kids, lose everything that's dear to them in this world, but much, much more in the Olam Haba. And therefore, you have to make sure to do this prescription exactly as he says. Come the Rabbanim, come the Chachamim, and they say, listen, we're worried that you're not going to really do it. You're not going to be as careful with your sister as you are with some strange woman. You're not going to be as careful with your daughter as you are with some strange woman. You're not going to be as careful with this as you are with that. Therefore, they have to put everything into a jar. So there's certain things where the Chachamim enacted in order to protect us from violating and ruining the whole thing. So now, of course, all of the naysayers, all of the heretics, all of the people that are addicted to sin, what do they say? The first thing they say, this is not necessary. I'm a grown man. I'm a grown woman. I can decide for myself. And they start trying to justify their case. And the primary way that they do it is by suspecting the Chachamim of immorality, of dishonesty, of things that they themselves are actually guilty of. This is why the Chachamim, when they said certain rules when it comes to judgment, they instilled certain rules to protect the judge and also the victims. So it's people that were coming to a case, if there was any way, shape or form that there could be favoritism in any way, any bias by one of the judges because he likes this person or he dislikes this person that is in his courtroom, that judge would be recused from the case. And the judges would recuse themselves anytime they had any favoritism, as was given in several examples. Whether it's someone that is a king or a kohen that is recused from being involved in the judgment of deciding whether to add a new month to the year or not, as it says in Gemara Masechet Rosh Hashanah, page 25b, or it's different judges that dealt with some of the people that came into their courtroom and delivered their groceries, and because of that, the judge perhaps looked at this person 1% more favorably than he did before he even knew that he existed. So here we see that the judges themselves see that there are certain things that could potentially cause them to view somebody more favorably or less favorably, and therefore they themselves had a very strong mind, a very strong eye for these things, and they would recuse themselves for these things. And Chazon Ish says, just as the power was given to bribery, there was a supernatural power. Kadosh Baruch Hu instilled a power in bribery that it has the ability to blind even the wisest of people. The same too is there's a power that was given to what is considered bribery by the tzaddikim in order to blind them. Meaning that the bribery itself is something that could blind even the wisest of men. We saw from parashat Korach, anyone that reads the Gemara about it or the Midrashim about it sees that Korach came with 250 of the biggest rabbis in the world. There was literally only a half a dozen tzaddikim left that were Gdolei Hador. You had Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron HaKohen, you have Betzalel, Caleb ben Yefuneh, Yeshua ben Nun, literally only a handful of big tzaddikim that we knew about. And then the other 250 big rabbis that Moshe Rabbeinu put in power, they went with Korach. And all of them went against Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Bribery. Korach was very, very rich and gave a lot of donations, the Gemara says, and therefore, as the saying goes, Baal HaMe'ah u'Baal HaDe'ah. The one that's the owner of the $100 bill is the one that's the owner of the opinion. All of a sudden, Korach, in his opinion, became the right automatically due to the $100 bill that it came with. So now it blinded all of these big rabbis. It blinded all of these formerly righteous people. So needless to say, if it could blind those people that were at Mount Sinai, that saw Kadosh Baruch Hu speak to Moshe Rabbeinu, saw Kadosh Baruch Hu's miracles, saw Kadosh Baruch Hu's words in the heavens, giving them the 10 Commandments. I mean, these are not regular people. These are people that were not only part of the generation of knowledge, the Dora De'ah, but even more so, these are people that literally saw Kadosh Baruch Hu speak to Moshe Rabbeinu out in the open, without any questions asked. So to go against Moshe Rabbeinu, you have to be literally crazy, or you have to be under some type of supernatural control, which came from the bribery, came from that, in essence, that donation from Korach. The same thing we see in other places in the Torah, in other places in the Gemara, of different people that fell for the trap of bribery. Now, even more so, the Chachamim say that bribery is not only something that comes from money, bribery is all sometimes that comes from honor. A person gets honor, a person gets respect. That's also something that a person needs to be careful of. And there is where the Chachamim come in, that's where the sages come in, and they say we have to be ultra careful of everything. Not just money, but everything that has to do with a bias. Anything that would create a bias. And the Chazon Ish says, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu instituted a supernatural power to bribery, to literally blind even wise men, he also instituted a supernatural power to the Chachamim, the people that dedicated their entire life to Torah, to serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to see what is bribery that is above and beyond the letter of the law. Meaning that, yes, there's the obvious bribery of money, there's the obvious bribery of, let's say, getting a position, getting certain type of honor, but it's also other things that the Chachamim see that this could lead to this. He came, he delivered my groceries a little earlier, and now he's in my courtroom. Surely I'm going to see him more favorable. Even though delivering groceries may not seem like a big deal. And it's not a big deal. It's just courtesy, or he's just doing his job. To the average person, that's the case. It's nothing, not a big deal. But the Chacham knows what human nature is. To a much higher level, has a much stronger mind, and also has a much better understanding of himself and how he appreciates what people do for him and what they don't do for him, and knows how that's going to affect him. So the Chazon Ish says that this supernatural power was instituted in essence the same way that the other supernatural power was given as far as bribery. Furthermore, he says, but when the Torah has given a person the right to judge and to rule in matters pertaining to the daily running of the world, it's a great disaster, a Holocaust he calls it in Hebrew, It's a great disaster when people feel permitted to suspect him unfairly. Here is the line we're going to focus on, because this is one of the things that unfortunately is not new today. It's common throughout all of the generations, where if you see a famous chacham, you see somebody that became Gdolado, you see somebody that helped a lot of people, you will also see a line of people that suspected them of wrongdoing, a line of people that went to war with him, a line of people that tried to destroy him and his family and everything that he was about. Whether it's Rabbi Ovadia or anybody that you could mention at the tzaddikim, literally every single one of them had different types of enemies that tried to destroy them in one way or another. And one of the ways that the wicked people try to destroy the chachamim is by suspecting them of wrongdoing, of things that are the worst. They don't suspect them of, oh, listen, I don't think he came to pray on time today. Or I don't think that he is keeping the same level of kashrut as the Gdolei Hador, as he preaches. He's only keeping standard kashrut. No, they typically accuse them of the worst possible things. And this, as a side note, would explain why many of the chachamim that were notified of different people that had a good reputation thus far and were suspected of any type of immorality, whether it be pedophilia or adultery or anything like that, they don't jump on a bandwagon like the public and the media does, where as soon as somebody says one thing wrong about somebody, immediately the media follows suit and they rip this guy apart before they can even prove the story. In fact, just in the last day or two, a horrific story from 3 years ago came to its next level of disaster, where 3 years ago I told you guys that one of the avrechim at the Kollel that Rabbi Ephraim was part of for the last 12, 13 years, one of the avrechim, both of his parents were murdered 3 years ago, and immediately the Israeli police, the Israeli government, immediately blamed him and his brother for murdering their own parents, especially the avrech that we're talking about. Arrested him, put him in jail, beat him up, tortured him, accused him of all of it, saying that he wanted their money, he wanted this, and this guy, literally, if you speak to the guy, it's like you're speaking to a malach. Doesn't even know what are you talking about, beyond cutting a piece of meat so you can digest it. He has no idea what you're talking about as far as murder or anything else. But these brutal police officers, that literally an excuse of a human being, they beat him up, tortured him, and did everything possible, things that they don't even do to terrorists, to Arab terrorists, that actually kill people on camera and are proud of it, saying Allahu Akbar. They don't do that to them. But to the Jew, the avrech that learns in a kollel, they tortured him, his wife. Literally a disaster and a half. A disaster and a half. Now, of course, after they tortured him, after a while, they finally released him from prison. He told Rabbi Ephraim, if there was a rope that I could find, I would have probably hung myself. That's how bad it was. That's how bad it was. They accused him of everything, destroyed his reputation. It was all over the media. Horrible, horrible story where you have a guy just suffered the death, the murder of both of his family, and if that's not enough, he's being accused of it. Now, of course, everybody could say, yeah, but how do they know? They're just doing their job. Yeah, but there's a way to do your job and there's a way to do your job. And if you're going to do your job, why don't you do your same job the same way all the time? So, either way, the accusal and the conviction already happened before the murder, because by being religious, by being an avrech, automatically you're guilty regardless of what the accusation is. Because that's the mindset of the Zionists. That's the mindset of the spiritual criminals that are out there, unfortunately, running rampant in Israel. Nonetheless, there are a lot of holy people in Eretz Yisrael that are giving the land a right to exist, so the land doesn't vomit us. But needless to say, this does not come without a price. This does not come without a price. There's a very, very big price for living in Eretz Yisrael. Now, 3 years fast forward, This Avrech is literally still damaged to this day. Mentally, he's not the same. Spiritually, he is literally, you see him, how he is. He has not recovered anywhere near to what he was a day before all of this happened. And the brutality, the abuse that him and his wife suffered from these police officers, Imach Shimam V'Zichram, is literally unprecedented, to say the least. Now, if that's not bad enough, just in the last couple of days, what came out? An Arab terrorist that simply signed up with ISIS, Imach Shimam V'Zichram, to fulfill their will in Eretz Yisrael and murder people, got caught and admitted to this specific murder. Admitted to this murder of killing these two people and is proud of it. Now that he admitted guilt, now that he's caught, now there's evidence, now there's everything, the Avrech comes, says, listen, look what you did to me. You destroyed my life, you destroyed my family, you destroyed my reputation, you destroyed everything. I'm going to sue you. What did the police respond? No, that's how we investigate. Meaning, there's no, I'm sorry. There's no, oh, we made a mistake. Oh, maybe we took it too far. Nothing. No remorse whatsoever. No remorse whatsoever. This is the way of the Reshaim, Rabotai. This is the way of the Reshaim. That's why the Gemara says, Reshaim, even at the gate of Gehenom, do not do tshuva. Even at the gate of Gehenom, they don't do tshuva. There's no remorse by the Reshaim. Some people tell me, do you think that some of these heretics that you call out are going to do tshuva? I'd like to believe that they will, but unfortunately I don't believe that they will. Why? Because after a person sees that they've done something wrong, if they have an inkling of morality in them, an inkling of righteousness in them, immediately they retract, immediately they slow down, immediately they perhaps rethink things. But these Reshaim that we've discussed in the past, what do? They magnify it, they increase it, they do even more. No remorse, no second guessing, no double checking, nothing. They figure if they did it, it must be right. And unfortunately, this is the way of the Reshaim. So now you have, unfortunately, people suspect tzaddikim all the time. People suspect tzaddikim all the time. This is not a new thing. This is not a new thing. But when it comes to Reshaim, people have a harder time suspecting them. Why? Because all of a sudden they become Chasidim, and they say, no, you should have kav zchut. Maybe he didn't do it. Maybe he didn't mean to do it. Yeah, but there's a track record of wickedness that this person has done. Yeah, but maybe he did tshuva. How do you know? So how come you have the benefit of the doubt that you're giving to this person, but you didn't give the same benefit of the doubt to the righteous people? Perhaps this says a lot about you. And that's actually one of the things that Rabbeinu Yonah says. Rabbeinu Yonah says in Sharei Tshuva, that the ish lefi ma'alalo, a person is who he admires. And this also, to elaborate on that teachings, is that if a person suspects the righteous, but gives benefit of the doubt to the wicked, that's because he identifies with the wicked. He doesn't identify with the righteous. This is like, for example, how the wicked people in the past, when Stalin was in power, people had so much admiration for him, they idolized him and swore that he's never going to die. Of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu uprooted him from the world like a dog that he was, but the amount of power that Stalin had was very similar to the amount of power that some leaders in the world have today, but not many, but nonetheless some of them do. Either way, when Stalin one time lost his tobacco case, he had a tobacco case and he lost it. Immediately, he called his general and said, oh, my tobacco case is lost. Sir, no worries. Within the next hour, I'll have a report to you of who took it, why they took it, where they live, what they did with it, and everything else. So, the general left on the mission to go find what happened, who is the thief of the tobacco case. A few moments later, the Stalin, Shem Reshaim Yirkav, opened his drawer and noticed, that's where his tobacco case is. So he took out his tobacco and went on back to his business, forgetting about the fact that he just sent his general on a mission to nowhere. Within an hour, the general comes in. He says, sir, I have the report ready for you. 15 people have been arrested for stealing the tobacco. 7 of them already admitted to taking it. 1 of them died during the investigation, and the rest of them, we're going to get a admission for them before too long. Not to worry, sir. And this is after Stalin already found the case. Sometimes, unfortunately, the world is upside down to such an extent that it would be funny if it wasn't true. It'd be funny if it wasn't true. Now, the Chazon Ish is trying to tell us something very, very important in all of the last several paragraphs, is that when it comes to Chachamim, when it comes to somebody that has toiled in Torah and literally sacrificed their life for the sake of the Torah, it's not a matter of is he different from you, but rather can you see how different he is from you? Meaning, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of whether you can see it, because different for sure he is. There's no question about whether he's different from you or not. The question is, do you see it? This is the reason why, Rabotai, the Chachamim in the Mishnah say that you have to be careful when you deal with Chachamim, because if you get too used to them, you could start thinking that they're just like you. And unfortunately, what happens is you start treating them like a regular person and can get on the wrong side of the Chacham, and when they bite, it hurts. When they bite, it hurts. And we're not talking about biting in a physical form, we're talking about in a spiritual. When a person goes against the Chacham, he could cause himself a lot of pain. A lot of pain. There was one guy that got sick and no doctor could cure him. And was sick for many, many years. And he just got worse and worse. Anyway, he started asking questions. You know, this is a frum person. Asking questions, what did he do? How come it's getting worse? Eventually he went to a very serious mekubal, a real mekubal. And the mekubal told him, you have to pray about it, do a ta'ani, do certain things, and then ask for HaShem to give you a guidance. So this is what the person did. Long story short, he had a dream where he saw Rabbi Ovadia. So he came back, told the Mekubal. Mekubal said, oh, what this dream means is that some time ago, you said something against Rabbi Ovadia. And now you have to ask for Mechila. So the guy's thinking, me saying against something against Rabbi Ovadia? When? And he realized 20 years before that, around the time that he got sick, he said something against Rabbi Ovadia, between him and his friends. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not like what he said, and he gave him a decree that caused him anguish like no other. So, okay, so how could I rectify it? Okay, you have to say, I'm sorry. Yeah, but Rabbi Ovadia just passed away a few years ago. Oh, so now you have to go to the grave and say I'm sorry. You have to go with 10 people, minyan, say I'm sorry, and pray that you get forgiven from heaven. Long story short, this is what he did, and literally, within a short period of time, he got healed. Something that was an open miracle for anyone that saw it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves his Chachamim, and he wants us to understand that they're very, very different. It's not that if they're different, it's a matter of, can you see how different they really are? Unfortunately, there are many people out there that not only don't see that the Chachamim of this generation, of previous generation, and needless to say, our sages of the Gemara and the Rishonim and the Gedolei Ador are different, but they even listen to so-called speakers and rabbis that mock the Chachamim, that say that the Chachamim are no different than you. I even heard one clown say, when he was asked, do you think that God knows the future? He says, he knows as much as you. Like, this is heresy it's needless to say, but this is like stupidity. This is stupidity in the highest level. But that's where arrogance brings a person. Now, the Chazon Ish himself, he dedicated his entire life to Torah and made sure that he fulfills the vow that he made during his bar mitzvah, where he prayed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on his bar mitzvah and said, Hashem, I'm going to learn Torah for the sake of Torah and not for any position, not for money, not for anything, just for the sake of Torah for the rest of my life. And when he went to find a shidduch, that was his requirement. A woman that will allow him to learn Torah peacefully without asking him to be a rabbi, without asking him to be a dayan. Just allow him to learn Torah. She can take care of the household and he can learn Torah. And of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that's mezavik zivugin. He's the one that makes the shidduch. The Gemara in Masechet Sotah, Daf Bet, in page 2, talks about how, based on a person's actions, that's what kind of zivug HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends him. If a person gets a modest woman, that shows that he is righteous. If he gets some zonah that shows our whole body to the streets, that also shows that he's wicked. If you are getting a woman that has no modesty, not in her appearance and not in the way that she talks, that you shouldn't blame her, you should blame yourself. If you don't find a shidduch, you should also blame yourself, because perhaps HaKadosh Baruch Hu is asking you to do more before he finally gives you this person that he wants to give you. So a person needs to understand that if you can't find a shidduch, it's not because of no reason. There has to be a reason. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't just leave people alone for no reason. There's a reason. If you want to get married and you can't find a shidduch, there's a reason for it. So the main reason is we need to do tshuva. But needless to say, most people don't like to talk about stuff like this. They think there's a shidduch problem, as if there is no people. There are people. There are midot crisis. There are MUSSAR crisis. There's Torah crisis. There's heresy crisis. But shidduch, it's not a crisis. It's simply people not wanting to admit that they have to do tshuva. Needless to say, the Chazon Ish found his shidduch, tzadikah, Kadusa, that she was the one that what she wanted was exactly what the Chazon Ish was. She wanted to take care of the house, and her husband learned Torah non-stop. Now, of course, the Chazon Ish hid himself, hid his righteousness, hid his Kadusa and his Torah, all the wisdom that he had. He did not show and tell like every average person. As soon as he finishes some 300-page book, immediately he advertises on Facebook of how he has a book collection of 7,000 books. He only read 3 of them, but he advertises that he has all these books. Or better yet, oh guys, it's a big simcha for me today. I finished the book. Okay, congratulations, you finished the book. What book did you finish? Oh, I finished the book by the Rambam, but it's not really the book by the Rambam. It's the commentary of some modern day rabbi that no one ever heard of. His commentary on the Rambam, but really, it's people have to understand. You were created to learn Torah. There's no reason for you to show off unless you're doing something to encourage other people. You do a siyum masechet, you do siyum shas, and you have an event, you have a party, not because you want to glorify that you're better than everybody else, but rather to encourage others to do it. That's something else. Many people don't really understand that. People usually think that the celebration is because you deserve some big party because you did such and such. No, it's the whole point of the event is to magnify and glorify Kadosh Baruch Hu's name and His Torah, to encourage others to learn Torah. Needless to say, the Chazon Ish ran away from honor, ran away to such an extent that many people did not know who he was until later on in his life. But as soon as he came out with the Sefer Chazon Ish, the first installment, Chachamim discovered it and they realized they have a Gadol Ador in their midst. Some guy that nobody even knew was anything, some regular average person that some people even thought he was crazy. They realized not only is he not crazy, he's one of the Gedolei Ador. The wisdom that you have in the Chazon Ish is something no one's heard of since Mount Sinai. So they realized they have a giant among them, but then World War I broke out and everybody ran for their lives. The Chazon Ish and his tzaddiket wife didn't have any children. They ran away also along with everybody else, suffered a loss many times during their life. His house went on fire. They lost the house multiple times. But this did not stop the Chazon Ish from learning Torah. When his house went on fire, he ran. He was notified while he was learning Torah. He stopped what he was doing, ran into the house that was on fire before anybody can tell him not to. Ran in and ran out with the smile bigger than his face, and went back to the Bet Midrash. They said, well, what happened? What did he do? Why is he smiling? His whole house is on fire. He lost everything. They saw, what does he have? He has the Chazon Ish. He has all of his chidushim that he wrote in the Chazon Ish that he needed for the next installment. That's it. Everything else replaceable. This is not replaceable. This is the chidushim that he toiled for many, many years. So when he finally arrived at Minsk in Russia, nobody knew who he was. And he went to the Bet Midrash over there in Minsk. And he took himself a corner, got a Gemara from the shelf, and started learning. Nobody knew who he was. And a group of Russian Jews walked in, regular Balebatim, and they had their daily shiur of learning Gemara, and they saw that they're missing, they can't find the Gemara that they're looking for. And they see, oh, who is this guy? Nobody knew who he was. One of the guys noticed, hey, he's holding the Gemara that we need to learn. This guy walks up, chest sticking out, sees this, who is this person? He's some average guy. And look how close he's holding the Sefer. He's holding the Sefer like this. He probably doesn't understand what he's reading. Grabs the book from the Chazon Ish and says to him, Gemara is not for regular, simple Jews. Gemara is for people that really know how to learn. Jews like you should go learn Tehillim. Go read some Tehillim. And he walks away. Chazon Ish didn't say anything. Got up, went to the shelves, found a book of Tehillim and started reading Tehillim. And you have these guys happy, they have their Gemara, they're going to do their Daf Yomi. The simple Jew that they never heard of, he's reading Tehillim like he should be. Why? Because Gemara is only for people who know how to learn. The next day, Gabbai asks this new guy, come, we'll give you an aliyah. Give you an aliyah to the Torah. What's your name? And Chazon Ish says his name. Immediately, the Gabbai passes out, falls, faints. Chazon Ish doesn't know what's going on. He gets up. The guy is covering his face, doesn't know what to say. Anyway, they continue with the reading of the Torah. After the prayer was finished, the Gabbai starts crying to the Chazon Ish. He's the same guy that took the book from the Chazon Ish. He says, Kvodo is the Chazon Ish. Kvodo is the Gdol Ador. And what did I do? Oy to me, that I disrespected you in such a way. Chazon Ish looks at him, dumbfounded, has no idea what. He goes, what did you do? You're right. Only people that know how to learn Gemara should read Gemara. And Jews should read Tehillim. So I went to read Tehillim. What? This was not because the Chazon Ish was trying to make him feel better. This is really the way that he saw the world. This is really the way he saw the world. His extraordinary stature in the world of Torah was known by everyone around him. But he himself did not view himself that way. When he went to Vilna, when the Chazon Ish went to Vilna after World War I was over finally, he went to Vilna because he had some family over there. Arav Kozinski, the Gdol Ador, lived in that community and knew who the Chazon Ish was. And wanted to give him a lot of kavod, but the Chazon Ish ran away from it. And they became very, very good friends. Spoke and learned a lot of Torah together. But Rav Kozinski wanted to give him kavod. So he said to the Gabbai, today, call him for an aliyah. But today, don't just say his first. Say Harav. Harav. And then say his name. When they called him up And they said, Arav, meaning the rabbi, the Chazon Ish became red and started shaking. Now he knew they called him to come up to the Torah, so he had to go up to the Torah, but the whole time he's shaking. He removed his glasses because he had he paskined that you should never have anything separating you from the Torah. That's not the halakha, but he paskined that way for himself. It was a stringency that he paskined for himself, that when someone is reading the Torah, he shouldn't have anything separating him from the Torah, including glasses, to show you the level of Kadusa that he was on. But the whole time he is shaking, he's red. Why? He says, whispering to himself, perhaps they just called me Rav. They just called me Rav. Perhaps it's a lie. Perhaps I'm not at that level, that they call me Rav. So we see from here, Rabotai, that these Chachamim, notably the one that we're talking about, Chazon Ish that wrote the Sefer, and many others, they're not like regular people. They don't see the world like regular people. They don't act like regular people. They look like regular people in a sense of putting their pants on one leg at a time. They eat, they drink, they get married, they have kids. But just like the Chazon Ish said early on in the Sefer, someone that knows Torah is looks like a man and even acts like a man in certain aspects, but is like an angel among men. It's an angel among men. He himself was that. Now, this very same type of Chacham, throughout all of history, and even more so today, are constantly accused of judging with the bias, saying things for their own self-interest. Like one Bachur from a YESHIVA, unfortunately, asked me the other day, how can you prove that the Torah was not changed? I said, why would you think that the Torah was changed? You're a Bachur YESHIVA. You learn Torah. He said, because the Muslim and the Christian scholars also have people that study a lot, and they have good arguments. They say that they have the truth. And the funny thing is that this is coming from somebody that goes to yeshiva, who's having a easy time believing the nation of murderers, the nation of thieves, the nations that literally try to destroy his and my ancestors since the day they came to this world, and still doing it to this day. But he has an easy time giving their arguments any merit, but the tzaddikim, the ones that never hurt a fly, the ones that if they saw a mouse in a trap, they would sometimes release it, the ones that literally dedicated their entire life to serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu and helping his people, them he questions. Why? Maybe they have a bias. So my question was, why would the rabbis, whether it's from this generation, or from 500 years ago, or from a time of Gemara, or from a time of Moshe Rabbeinu, why would they care if you, little nothing, put on tefillin or not? Why would they care if you go to Beit Knesset and pray 3 times a day? What do they get out of it? What do they get out of it of telling you to not be immoral and not waste seed? What, they benefit out of it somehow? How do they benefit? What do they have, a collection where they have a sperm bank to go sell it to the world? What are they doing? What's the logic here? What are they? They are the only ones that sell tefillin, so that's their business, because once in a blue moon somebody buys tefillin, so that's why they tell you to put on tefillin. What do they get out of it? The best is when somebody says, Rabbi, what do you think I should do? Should I buy a new pair of tefillin? What's wrong with your tefillin? Well, I don't know. I got them 20 years ago, and the corner is broken, and I think that there's something wrong with them. And can you answer these questions? Okay, you answer the questions. Okay, you know what, Rabbi? You convinced me. I'm going to go buy some new tefillin from down the street. So the best part is that people will ask you questions about tefillin, but then they go buy it from somebody else. Why? Oh, because it's more convenient for them to buy something else. So even the ones that help people with the tefillin, or with the mezuzah, or with anything, with the talit, or anything, what do people do? Even when they go buy it, they usually go buy from somebody else. Why? That's the nature of people. They figure, listen, I have this rabbi to answer my questions, and I have this rabbi or this store that's going to be where I buy stuff from. So even if a person said, listen, the rabbis say to put on tefillin because they want to sell tefillin, even that argument doesn't work, because the reality is it doesn't work that way. Most people, they just buy from whoever they want to buy from, whoever is closer to them, whoever they have a feel that they have a better product, whoever has the best price. Unfortunately, some people buy because of price, and hence the reason why many people buy non-kosher tefillin, because those usually have the best price. The key is to understand is that when the rabbis are telling you what it says in the Torah, you have to understand they're not coming from a place of bias, because there cannot be any bias. There is no interest, there is no benefit for them to tell you to observe the Torah. They don't get anything out of it, either because they don't even know you and never will, they don't even live in your generation, and needless to say, even if they do, and even if they're your local rabbi, even if they're your rabbi, they still don't benefit out of you doing what you're supposed to be doing. You are the only one that benefits from it. Now you're going to say, wait a minute, if I do what they say, and I start keeping mitzvot, and I start going to shul, and I start watching the shulim online, then I'm sure I'm going to start donating to BeEzrat.org. I'm going to start donating to you. So you want me to listen to all your shulim because you want me to donate to you. So see, you benefit out of it. Wrong. You benefit out of it, not me. Exactly. You benefit. If you donate to BeEzrat HaShem, you benefit, not me. I don't benefit even a cent from it. Every donation that a person donates is for their own good, not for the organization or the Chacham's good. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only one who dictates how much parnasah a person is going to get. It's not decided by the donors, it's not decided by an employer, it's not decided by a community, it's only decided by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Meaning that whether the money is going to come from his donation or somebody else's donation, or it's going to fly from Shamayim, from some cloud, is going to give it to a little bird to bring it to the house, to put it in an envelope and fold it nicely, put a nice little green bow on it and say Yaron Reuven on it. That's how Kadosh Baruch Hu wants it. That's how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be. A person has to understand that when they do good, they are the ones that benefit from it, not anybody else. Not anybody else. Any mitzvah that you do, you are the beneficiary of it, not the one that receives it. Why? Although the one that receives it should say thank you, should be appreciative, it's not because you are the only way they were going to get the salvation, but rather because you chose to be the vessel. That's what the gratitude is for. But needless to say, the salvation came from HaShem. So a person that does a mitzvah thinks that the rabbis are benefiting from that mitzvah is looking at things the wrong way. Looking at things the wrong way. Hence the reason when you see the teachings from the sages, they're constantly warning people from doing things that are wrong because it destroys their life, not the rabbi's life, the person's life. The person's life. And any time you have a relationship with somebody where that relationship is dependent on something, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says that relationship won't last. That relationship won't last. Years ago, I had a guy call me from Atlanta and tell me, listen, I watch your shulim, I love them, whatever. In those days, I still picked up the phone once in a blue moon. And he says, listen, I want to convert, and I want you to help me, and I'm going to send you $10,000. I said, you sound like a serious person. You've been studying already for years before you watch my shulim. You've been watching my shulim for a while. I'm more than happy to help you, but please don't send the money. He said, excuse me? What do you mean, don't send the money? I said, no, I don't want your money. Why not? What's wrong? Why? Why don't you want the money? $10,000. In those days, I think maybe I had $3 in my bank account. And the organization, I think, just started. This is like maybe 7, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, something like that. I had nothing at that time. It was after the crash, after I lost everything. But he told me he wants to send me $10,000. I told him, no, I don't want it. Why not? I said, because I don't want you to think that I'm going to help you because of the money. The guy started crying on the phone. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't mean to make him cry. He just started crying on the phone. I said, why are you crying? He says, I've already been dealing with rabbis for like 10, 15 years. And every time this is the way it is. I give the money, but they never help me. You're the first one that says, I'm going to help you, but I don't want anything from you. He was dumbfounded. Dumbfounded. Baruch Hashem, we helped him, helped his wife. Baruch Hashem, they converted eventually. Everything went okay. But the truth is that sometimes, even a person like that can forget what happened 7, 8, 9 years ago. Why? Perhaps over that time, some other crazy thought went into that person's head and thought, oh, you know what? Maybe this, maybe that, maybe this, maybe that. Unfortunately, when a person thinks that someone that dedicates their life to Torah is the same thing as anybody else, they're only a rock throw away from being a rasha too. They're only a rock throw away from being the worst person on earth too. Why? That's just the way the Satan works. And this is not just with regular people. This is even with big chachamim. The Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit, page 20, starts with A, at the end of A and goes into B. Has a story of none other than Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Everyone knows that Rabbi Elazar was a giant chacham even as a child. He was a prodigy where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai would feed him a lot of food to give him a lot of strength to learn Torah. He would feed him meat, but he would eat more than an average person. He became very, very big, but he would learn for 30, 40 hours straight, standing. Something not humanly possible. Long story short, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, obviously his Torah was already known all over the world, and his son was also Gdolado. One day, whether it was before the cave or after, I'm not sure, but nonetheless, Rabbi Elazar, I believe, was after the whole cave, and he already became one of the Gedolei Hador. Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon finished a very long study session with his rabbi. And when I mean a very long study session, it's not like long study session like people think long study session. You ask a guy, oh, wow, you look happy. Why, you study for a while? Yeah, I just had my best study session ever. Oh, Baruch Hashem, what'd you do? 2 hours, Rabbi. Wow, chazaku baruch, 2 hours, good. Now, in days of the Gemara, if you said I study for 2 hours, I tell you, when do you start? What do you mean, when do I start? When do you start studying? 2 hours is not even considered preparation. The Chidah says if you studied less than 4 hours straight, you haven't even studied. Now, of course, today, in today's world, if you study for 5 minutes, it's already good. But nonetheless, there are different perspectives and different levels. Today, in the Gemara were times where Rabbi Akiva went for a long study session, he came back 12 years later. Other Chachamim went for long study sessions for years at a time. Years, not hours, years at a time. They would go and learn Torah. So anyway, after a long study session, the Gemara says, long study session with his rabbi, he felt proud of what he achieved. Proud of what he achieved. So the Gemara says that he was riding on his donkey back home, and he saw this ugly guy in front of him. Really, really ugly person. Who said, hello. Hi, Rabbi. Said hello to him. Rabbi Elazar looked at this ugly guy and says to him, empty one. How ugly are you? Are all the people of your city as ugly as you? Rabbi Elazar, Kodesh Kodeshim, says to a guy that's ugly the truth, but doesn't look so good. So of course Chachamim say, what is this? How is he saying ugly? So Chachamim, there's different explanations for it. One of the explanations is that when somebody makes a lot of sins, it uglifies them. It makes them ugly, physically ugly, makes their appearance very, very different than what they would be if they don't make sins. If you want a real life proof of this, look at the before picture and the after picture of somebody that did tshuva. Before and after. I don't mean about gaining weight, losing weight. That has nothing to do with it. Somebody can gain weight, somebody can lose weight. That has nothing to do with sins or mitzvot. I'm talking about if you look at the before picture. If somebody really, really did tshuva. I'm not talking about somebody who did tshuva 6 weeks ago. I'm talking about somebody did real tshuva. You see their picture, specifically of their face. Specifically of their face, before and after. And you'll see that there are certain characters on the face that softened. Soften. It's proven. I've seen this many, many times. It's unbelievable that it's 100% baduk. It's checked and valid. Checked and valid. You'll see somebody before conversion, even if they were good before conversion. After conversion, few years, maybe even a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, depending on how long it took them to get to where they need to be. See the features on their face changed drastically. Baal Tshuva, before picture, after picture. I'm not talking about aging. It has nothing to do with aging. There are certain features on a face that change. Certain features on the body that change. When a person goes down from a Torah, you see the same thing. You see a Bachur, unfortunately, Hashem Yishmo. When we would never see it and never experience it, may you never experience it. You see a Bachur, a Bachura, a boy or a girl that was frum, leave the derech and become one of the people that go and join the gay pride parade. Okay? You have one of these people who used to be in yeshiva, and now he's in gay pride parades. You look at the picture. I'm not talking about hairdo, I'm not talking about weight, I'm not talking about earrings. I'm talking about facial features. You see what they are, you'll see there's a night and day difference. Before sins, after sins. Now it could be that this person was sinning in hiding beforehand, so the picture may not necessarily change always. But nonetheless, Chachamim say that this person was looked like he was a big sinner, either because of his facial features, or some say because of the way he moved his body, the way his clothes were, he looked like a thug. Either way, Rabbi Elazar says, ugly, empty one, calls him an empty one. How ugly are you? Are all the people in your town ugly? Now what Rabbi Elazar doesn't know is that he's being tested from Shamayim. He's being tested from Shamayim for exactly that pride, where the Satan, it's worth it for him to allow a person to go learn Torah, to go do mitzvot, to even go do KIRUV, so he feels like he is really good, he's righteous, he gave out a lot of books, he gave out a lot of CDs, he gave out a lot of lectures, he feels like he is great, and all of a sudden he starts looking at the people around him as, he's a sinner, he's a rasha, she's a zonah, she's a this, he's a that. Starts looking at everybody else as lesser beings. It's worth it for the Satan to allow that person to go and build himself up just to destroy him because of his arrogance. Because then all of the holiness that comes from his learning Torah, all of the holiness that comes from all of the good that he did, gives strength to the Satan. HaShem Yishmo v'yatzil. All of that strength of the good that he did, or she did, goes to the Satan. Why? Pride. They start thinking they're better than everybody else. Now, the Satan was waiting for Rabbi Elazar to finish the study session. Why? So he could send him some test. Send him a test. But who's the test? Eliyahu HaNavi. Zachur letov. Eliyahu HaNavi comes in the form of an ugly person. And Rabbi Elazar says, empty one. How ugly are you? All the people ugly like you in your town. And this ugly person responds, I don't know. Perhaps you can go to the craftsman who made me and say, how ugly is the vessel that you made? As soon as Rabbi Elazar heard this person say that, he realized he made a mistake. This guy's mentioning God? No way that he's a sinner. No way that he's a wicked person. No way, I made a mistake, I misjudged him. Immediately Rabbi Elazar gets off of his donkey and lays down on the ground, begging him, please forgive me. Now Rabbi Elazar was big, huge. For him to go lay down on the ground, not easy. But he realized he made a mistake. Unlike the Reshaim, that they realize they make a mistake, they do even more. Stop saying that God needs you. They have another lecture about God needs you. Stop saying there's no Gehenom. They have another lecture that says no Gehenom. Stop bringing missionaries to the synagogue. They bring another missionary to the synagogue. Stop making fun of the Chachamim. They make fun of God too and the Chachamim. You tell them that they're doing wrong, they make it even more. That's Reshaim. Tzaddikim, the second they realize they made a mistake, immediately change everything. Rabbi Elazar goes on the floor and starts begging this person, please forgive me, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Now this guy doesn't know who Rabbi Elazar is. He just knows some guy. Looks like a chacham, looks this, looks that, but he doesn't know who he is. He says, I won't forgive you. I don't want to forgive you. Now Rabbi Elazar simply does not leave this guy. He becomes a shadow. Follows him wherever he is. The whole way. Please forgive me. Please, have mercy on me. Forgive me. No. Please, have mercy. No, leave me alone. Please forgive me. I made a mistake. No, I won't forgive you. In so many words, he tells him, I won't forgive you until you tell HaShem, why'd you make this guy so ugly? Meaning, I won't forgive you until you die. In so many words. Why? When's a person going to see HaShem? When he dies. He says, I won't forgive you until you die. Rabbi Elazar follows him the whole way. He gets into the city, and people see, Rabbi Elazar, Gdol Hador, they know him. It's Gdol Hador. They start singing, oh! The guy's looking around, what is this? And they start saying, Rabbeinu. The guy's looking, I'm not Rabbeinu. He goes, no, not you. He goes, who's Rabbeinu? Behind you is Gdol Hador. Oh, he looks behind. He goes, who? He goes, that's Gdol Hador, that's Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon. He goes, if that's a big rabbi, may God never make more people like him. They said, whoa, chas v'shalom, why you say such a thing? Why you say such a thing? He tells them, no, he called me ugly. He said this, he said that. And they say to him, even if he said it, you should forgive him. Why should I forgive him? For the sake of the Torah. He has a lot of Torah in him. He has a lot of Torah in him. He says, I'll forgive him, but for your sake, not for the Torah. From there we learn what? We learn, first of all, the people that welcomed him at the city were Chachamim themselves. And because they were Chachamim, they knew that even if somebody knows a lot of Torah, they're still human. They're still human, but they have to be treated with special treatment. The more Torah they have, the more you have to understand that sometimes you have to treat them a little differently. But that does not make them not human, meaning he can still make a mistake. He made a mistake, he called you ugly, we're not sure who, what, when, and how. Either way, forgive him. Forgive him. Why? For the sake of the Torah. For the sake of the Torah. But the Rasha says, no, I'm not going to forgive him for the sake of the Torah, I'm going to forgive him for your sake. Because you guys are in my town, you're my friends, I know you, I'll forgive him for your sake, not for the Torah. Why? Because if that's how he became because of the Torah, who needs that? Who needs this Torah? So the test continues. Comes Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon into the first Bet Midrash. First Bet Midrash in the city. And he gives a shiur. What is the shiur? The Gemara says, Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon immediately started the giving a shiur. Topic, that a person should always be soft like a reed and not hard like a cedar. And it was for this reason that the reed merited to have pens drawn from it in order to be used to write Torah scrolls and tefillin and mezuzot. Rabbi Elazar says a person has to understand that there are times that he's going to make a mistake. And there are times other people are going to make a mistake. Sometimes that mistake can even happen from a chacham. Chacham can make a mistake. But if you want to emulate the best of the best, you have to learn how to be flexible and not be something that's not flexible. Cedar is not a flexible tree. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't use a cedar for anything having to do with Torah. He's not going to use it to write, to make any pens. No. Why? It's not flexible. But the reed, it's flexible, that he uses it. Why? To teach us. The Torah is not there just to tell you, no, no, no. Sometimes, yes is the answer. It doesn't take a big chacham to tell you that everything is forbidden. An idiot can do that. A chacham will tell you when it's allowed and when it's not allowed. And not only tell you when it's allowed and when it's not allowed, but he's going to tell you when it's allowed and when it's not allowed, and according to the Torah. And in fact, we'll look for ways that the Torah permits certain things in order to make life easier for you. Some people think, oh, the more stringent I am, the more religious I am. Wrong. That's not right. That's not right at all. Being more stringent does not make you more religious. In fact, Rabbi Yaron Reuven says that certain people, they add so many chumrot, so many stringencies, these chumrot, which is stringencies in Hebrew, turn them into chamorim, turn them into donkeys. A real chacham is not looking for stringencies. A real chacham is looking to help people live in accordance to the Torah. Sometimes you have to find a way to make things easier for people. Whereas other times, you have to add stringencies in order to protect people. The chacham is going to know when to do it and when not to do it. And in order to be that chacham, it's not just about learning a lot of information, but also learning how to be flexible as a human being. When a person is black and white all the time, they're not going to succeed in anything in their life. They're not going to succeed in their marriage. They're not going to succeed in their parenthood. They're not going to succeed in the Torah. They're not going to succeed in becoming a good human being altogether. They're not going to succeed in business. They're not going to succeed in anything. Why? Because when a person is not flexible, that means, first and foremost, if their wife or their husband does anything wrong, the food is not hot enough, or it doesn't taste perfect enough, or they didn't come on time, or they didn't, make something ready, or they didn't show up, or they didn't say thank you, or they didn't open the door, or they didn't pay attention to you exactly like you want. Immediately, fight. Fight! Their poor kids, instead of having parents, they'll have a wrestling match in the house. Every time the father shows up from work, the kids can start cheering. Fight, 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 like we did when we were little kids. Why? Because they know the father's not flexible, the mother's not flexible, that means there has to be a fight. Nobody wants flexible. He says black, she says white, he says white, she says black, and both of them are wrong. It's burgundy. Everybody's, what? No one's flexible. No one's flexible. You're not flexible, your marriage will go to the garbage. To the garbage. Parenthood, nightmare. Why? Your kids will always be victims. Always be victims. Why? Those kids will never have a mind of their own. They'll be scared to death from whatever is going on. And guess what happens with scared kids? Scared kids become the worst kids. Scared kids become the worst kids. Why? They don't become good kids. If they're good, that's not because their parents scared them to death. They're good because their parents knew how to be flexible, forgiving at times, a little more stringent at other times, compromising at times, less compromising at other times. But when parents are ultra strict, the kids don't turn out good. Why? The kids many times turn out revolting. What they do is, in front of the parents, they're like, so, okay, fine, soldiers, soldiers, soldiers. As soon as the parent looks one way or another, it's like breaking out of jail. They break out of jail, they make every crime under the sun. And that's why you'll see many times the criminals of the world come from criminals. They don't come usually from good parents. They come from criminals. The criminal come from a criminal. But that criminal as a parent, many times, didn't want his kid to be a criminal. He was very strict. He figured if he's very strict at home, his kid is not going to be a criminal. It's the opposite. The kid ends up being a criminal because of that strictness. It's not good to be overly strict when it comes to be kids. When it comes to teaching kids, you have to be flexible. You have to be flexible. Sometimes you have to remind yourself, he's only 3 years old. So what if he needs you in the face instead of giving you a kiss goodnight? Okay, it's not fun, it's not great, but he's 3 years old, big deal. You have to remember that sometimes this is what happens. Sometimes that's their weird way of communicating. Sometimes it's a mistake. He thought he was playing a game. Sometimes this, sometimes that. Sometimes she said something and she meant it somebody else, or she said something and it meant this. You have to understand, at times you have to be flexible. If you're not flexible, your parenting is going to be a nightmare. A nightmare. Now again, if you're too loose, you let your kids do everything, then of course you have little Hitlers in your house. They're just growing to become them. So you have to be flexible. That's what flexible means. Flexible means one way. Sometimes you're one way, sometimes you're the other way. On the other hand, when it comes to business, if you're not flexible, you're never going to make it. Why? Sometimes there's a deal on the table. There's a deal on the table, and it's not the way you want it. It's not the way you want it. They're saying 18,000. You're saying it's not worth more than 15,000. And you're right. It's not worth more than 15,000. But to say no, it's going to cost you 30,000. So you have to decide, is it worth it for me to pay 3,000 more than what it's worth? Because if I don't, it'll cost me 30,000. If you're a smart businessman, you'll say, yes, I'm going to pay the extra 3,000 that it's not worth, because that 3,000 is saving me 30. But if you're an arrogant idiot that's never going to make a real dollar in his life, what's going to happen? Say, no, never going to pay you. Go find a different customer. I'll rather lose my money than pay you extra. You're an idiot. You're never going to make it in life. Why? Because you're right, but you're wrong. So in business, you have to be flexible. You have to be flexible. Look what happened recently. I didn't follow all the details of the transaction, but I know two details. One, Elon Musk decided that he wants to buy Twitter because that's the next medallion that he wants on his wall. He wants freedom of speech and all types of honor that comes with it. Fine, no problem. But the board that runs Twitter is literally his arch enemy. It's lefty, liberal, anti-truth, anti-anybody that speaks out the truth if it's not lefty liberalism. So the worst possible buyer and the worst possible seller. What happened in the end? They agreed. They came to terms. Why did they come to terms? Simple. The guys that are running the board are saying, listen, we can fight him, but why? We can just take the money and go build another company. Go live our life. Go do something else. Why fight this war if we could just cash out now and go do 1.5 million other things, just like he himself did with PayPal and with a bunch of other companies that he owned in the past? So, although they have a warped mentality when it comes to perhaps human nature in general, when it came to business, they were very smart. Why? Simple. He wants to buy it. He's going to pay a huge premium that the company's never going to be valued at that point ever again. He's going to pay for it. We're going to cash in and we're going to go do something else. We'll do something better because now we have money that we can do it with and no restrictions. So, as businessmen, geniuses. They cashed in at literally practically the peak, a little bit less than the peak price that they will ever get. In business, you have to be flexible or else you will never succeed in life. Sometimes you have somebody offering you a job. It's not the job that you want, but it can get you to the job that you want. Yeah, but I'm worth more. Is anybody paying you that more? No. So you're not worth more. You're only worth what somebody's willing to pay you. And if nobody's willing to pay you, you're not worth that much. Yeah, but I have experience. Okay, nobody cares. Yeah, but maybe I should wait. You could wait and make zero, or you can get the job that you don't really want, that you're worth a lot more to it, but you can at least make something until you get the job that you want. Sometimes you have to be flexible when it comes to work. But some people, no, unless I'm doing what I want to do from day one and get paid accordingly, I'm not going to do it. Okay, you're going to be a loser, and you're never going to make it in life. In anything that's worth anything. Why? Because the greatest CEOs, the greatest people in business, at some point were the bottom of the barrel. Were the mailman, were the janitor, was the clerk, was the secretary. And what made them the CEO wasn't because they were always the smartest. Wasn't always because they always got what they want. But rather because they were persistent with the end goal, and they were willing to be flexible along the way to get to where it is. They were willing to be flexible. They were willing to take whatever heat they had to take in order to get to where they need to be. Sometimes a person is so arrogant, they don't think that they should take any heat. They don't think anybody should yell at them. They don't think anybody should be upset with them. They don't think anybody should underpay them. They don't think anybody should treat them anything less than them being the best and even better than what they really are. And unfortunately, that's the generation of today, the generation of entitlement. Everybody thinks that they should be paid like a CEO even though they don't have the skill set of a secretary. That's a reality. It's a wrong reality. It's a reality that creates a lot of problems for people. Hence the reason why a lot of people end up wasting their time at home doing absolutely nothing instead of actually doing something productive in the world. Many times people send me messages during the day and I ask myself, what are you doing home? Why are you home all the time? You're on Facebook, you're on Twitter. Why don't you get a job? Why don't you go work and do something? Oh no, I can't find the job that I want. Okay, so at least are you learning all day? Because all you're doing is sending me things you saw on Facebook, things you saw on Twitter, things you saw in the media, which seems like you're not learning anything. Not only you're not learning anything, you're damaging yourself, but in the process you think that you're religious. Why? Because you could point to me the 5 heretical remarks that somebody made yesterday. Like, you are the scout of heresy, but nobody's paying you for it. Sometimes a person has to be realistic with themselves. Are you just there to judge the whole world and not yourself? Because there's 24 hours in a day and you're producing nothing. You're producing nothing. And sometimes you'll say, no, I'm not producing nothing. I study 2 hours a day. Yeah, out of 24 hours, Habibi. You're studying 2 hours out of 24 hours. Now, if you worked a regular job, you worked 8, 9, 10 hours a day, you traveled for a couple hours each way, you have a family, you have kids, you have all types of things, responsibilities, and you study 2 hours a day, then I'd say, Chazaku Baruch. But you are 20, 25 years old, you're doing nothing with your life, and you're proud of your 2 hours. In reality, you should be studying 20 hours. So a person sometimes is fooling themselves because they are not flexible with their mentality altogether. They figure that if they do this one thing, then it makes everything else okay. So a person has to be flexible in all aspects. And needless to say, when it comes to Torah, a person has to be flexible with certain things. What flexible with what? Flexible with the understanding that they have, in a sense that if they see something, that's what the Chachamim say. That's what you go with. No problem. But if you see that a different Chacham, a well-respected Chacham, says something that's the opposite, that doesn't mean that the first Chacham is automatically wrong. And it doesn't mean that the second Chacham is automatically right. It doesn't mean that they're enemies. It doesn't mean that you have to always pick sides. You have to know that sometimes there are two sides, and they're both right. Sometimes you have simply a misunderstanding of one of the sides. Hence the reason of why you have to have a Chacham to go clarify it for you. What is it that I need to do with this versus this? Many times a person is not flexible with their Torah because they figured that if they read it, therefore they have the ability to interpret it and understand it. And therefore, whatever their understanding is must be right. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. A person needs to know that even if he himself is a Chacham, he has to have a Chacham to double check. To double check what he's doing. To double check everything. Yeah, but what if this and what if that? Oh, you're suspecting other people but not yourself. So it's important for a person to know that in every single aspect of his life or her life, flexibility is necessary. Anytime a person finds themselves as not being flexible, they're doing things that are the opposite of what the Chachamim do. Now, of course, the Chachamim have an endless amount of examples of how they would apply their flexibilities to the extent that the simple things that they did, where they acted literally as if it's a reflex. To us, it requires an enormous amount of thought, and even if we thought about it all day, we wouldn't be able to arrive at the same conclusion of what they did. But to them, the way that they took things, the way they handled things, came so natural to them due to the power of the Torah that they had, that they were naturally flexible at the right place. They were naturally able to deal with certain circumstances in a perfect way in order to arrive at the truth. And one of the best places to see this as is in the judgments that they had in the Bet Din. At the Bet Din, what happened during cases? Rabbi Yaakov Milisa, this few stories are mentioned in the Sefer by Rabbi Ovadia called the Anaf Etz Avot. Now, he mentions several commentaries on the different Mishnayot and so on, and different stories. Also, it's pure genius. It's literally like you're in Gan Eden learning Torah. It's unbelievable stuff. And it's actually in English for anyone that wants to read it. It's serious, serious stuff. Baruch Hashem. Anyway, Rabbi Ovadia brings a couple of cases from the Bet Din. Now, one case is a case that was brought to Rabbi Yaakov Milisa. Rabbi Yaakov Milisa was one of the Gedolei Hador, was the author of Netivot, a very famous sefer. And Rabbi Yaakov Milisa was a couple hundred years ago, about 250 years ago. Had a guy come to him, two people come to him, and to Bet Din. And one guy says, I found this coin, and it's a gold coin. And this guy said it's his. Immediately as soon as I found it, he attacked me, said, oh, it's mine. I don't believe it's his. I found it. So Rabbi Yaakov Milisa asked the second guy to speak. No, it's yours, you're saying? Yeah, it's for sure, it's mine. I know my coin, it's my coin. I need it. I dropped it. I looked back, I saw it over there. By the time I got there, he already got there. It's mine. Now, Rabbi Yaakov Milisa sensed that the second guy that said it's his coin was lying. But he can't tell him, I think you're a liar. That's not going to help him. That's going to show a certain bias. That's going to show that perhaps he does this. So you have to prove it. Okay, no problem. Let me see the coin. You guys step outside for a second. I have to inspect the coin. Fine. So the two guys step out of the room, and Rabbi Yaakov Milisa is there with his couple of Talmidim. So Rabbi Yaakov Milisa sensed that the second guy, like I said, he's lying, and he knew that for sure he's eavesdropping. He's listening in. So Rabbi Yaakov says to his Talmid, "Ooh, look at that! It seems that on the right side of this coin, there's a small hole. There's a small hole. You see that little hole? That's, Gemara says, that's enough of a sign for somebody to say that this is their coin." Shortly later, he says, "Okay, you guys come back in." So the first guy says, "No, you found something?" He goes, yeah, I investigated and everything. Now you're saying you found the coin. No problem, but we have to make sure that it's really not his coin. So he says to the second guy, "Is there anything perhaps that you remember about this coin that would be like a sign that you know it's your coin?" So the second guy says, "Oh yeah, Kvod Harav, actually I was just about to tell you. If you notice, on the right side of the coin, there's a little hole. And I know my coin." So Rabbi Yaakov Milisa takes the coin, puts it on the table, goes, "See, this coin doesn't have any holes. So BeEzrat HaShem, you'll have success in finding your coin. In the meanwhile, this coin is yours," the guy that found it. Here we see how without calling a person a liar and accusing him of anything wrong, simply genius can see who is lying and who is not according to the Torah. According to the Torah. Because you can't just decide it's not his. You can't just decide it is his. You have to know what to do and how to do it. For that, you have to be a little flexible, and a little bit of patience. A little bit of patience too. Further, there's another case. Another beautiful case that Rabbi Ovadia brings. It's I'm looking at all of these different ones. It's really, there's endless Torah. Endless Torah. I'm trying to pick which story is better. So, of course, none of them is better, none of them is worse, but each one is amazing. Anyway, there was another case that was brought to to Rabbi Eliyahu Chaim, and a guy that worked really hard at some winery, and he came to the Rav, crying, misken the guy. He says, Kvod Rav, I don't know what to do. Tragedy has happened in my life. Oi to me. He goes, well, what happened? He says, I worked for a long time, saved my money. I got the 200 gold coins. Now, Shabbat was coming in, and I didn't know what to do with the coin, where to put them. So I figured, you know what, let me put them under one of the barrels at work. Let me put under the barrels, and then I'll hide them over there, and then after Shabbat, I'll come take them. So, I put them under the barrel. Shabbat came out. I came to get my coins back. The coins are gone. Now, of course, the only one that's in the winery is the owner. He's the only one that was there. There's nobody else, no other employees that were there. So surely he's the one that took it. But when I told him about it, he started yelling at me and said, how could I even dare to accuse him? So I don't know what to do, Kvod Rav. So Rabbi Eliyahu Chaim called for somebody to bring the owner. Bring the owner. He brought the owner, and he says to him, so tell me what you think. He goes, no, Kvod Rav, I did not steal anything. I'm being accused for no reason whatsoever. This is not what I expected out of him. Of course, Rabbi Eliyahu says, I'm sorry, not Rabbi Eliyahu Chaim, Rabbi Shlomo Klugel. Rabbi Shlomo Klugel says to him, tell you the truth, I really didn't call you to accuse you of doing anything wrong. Because I know you're not going to steal the guy's money. Oh, Baruch Hashem, Kvod Rav. I have to do for formality, I have to call you. Oh, okay, Baruch Hashem, Kvod Rav, Baruch Hashem. So now the thing is though, also, I need you to sign over here. Well, what is it, Kvod Rav? I need you to sign over here because since obviously it wasn't you that took the coins, and he wasn't there, that means that there had to be a goy that went into your winery that stole the coins, right? The guy's nodding. Again, it's not me. Yeah, so it must be, it's not him, it's not me. It must be some goy, because the majority of the people are non-Jews. Since a goy went into your winery, and we don't know what he did, surely we have to forbid all of your wine as yain nesech, as wine of idolaters that you're not even allowed, not only not allowed to drink, not allowed to benefit from, meaning you have to pour it all out, and I have to give you this, sign this letter over here because I need you to hang it on all the walls of your winery, and I have to publicize this to the whole community that no one is allowed to drink your wine. As soon as Rav Klugel finished his sentence, the guy's sweat started coming down so profusely as he realized he's about to lose every single penny that he has. Why? Because he stole 200 coins from his employee. And he says, no, Kvod Rav, I don't think you need to do that, because you know what, now that I think about it, it's possible that maybe I have that bag of coins that he has. No, don't worry about the coins. We just sign over here. No, Kvod Rav, I'm just trying to tell you, I think I made a mistake. I think now I remember I made a mistake that maybe I did take it. I don't believe you. You just don't want to lose the wine, probably. No. I took it, Kvod Rav. I need you to sign over here. No, Kvod Rav, I can't because I really took the bag. I need you to prove me that you took the bag. I want to see the bag. I want to see the coins. The guy runs to his winery, comes back within 30 seconds practically, with the bag, with the proof that it's that guy's coins, it's that guy's bag, and he is the thief. Why? Because Rav Klugel can't tell him you're the thief. But he has to work with the rules of the Torah in order to get the truth out of him. The same happened with Rav Eliyahu Chaim. Eliyahu Chaim, he also was a dayan, where there was somebody that stayed at a hotel. And in those days, anytime that you stayed at a hotel, you would leave stuff at the safe of the hotel. And the guy left the stuff with the hotelier. And after Shabbat came out, he says, I want my stuff. He says, what stuff? You didn't give me anything. You didn't give me, what do you mean I didn't give you anything? I gave you all my money. I don't know what you're talking about. So of course the guy comes to the Beit Din, Rabbi Yaron Reuven. He tells him this guy's a thief. Says, okay, hold on. He calls the guy that owns the hotel. Please come over here. I need you to come to the Beit Din. The guy comes. He's all angry. Look at this. I'm being blamed. All of the people in the neighborhood know who I am. All of the rabbis come here. Everybody comes here. Me being a thief, I already have plenty. How could I be accused? So Rabbi Yaron Reuven says to him, no. It's just a formality. I'm not accusing you of anything. I just want to talk to you because I have to do my job. Oh, okay. Oh, what is that? Tobacco? Yeah. Can you do me a favor? Can you give me some a little bit? Oh, sure. He gives him the tobacco case. Give him the tobacco case. So Rabbi Yaron Reuven starts talking to him, and he hides the tobacco case. In the process, the guy is talking, and the guy liked to talk. Rabbi Yaron Reuven says, 1 second, I got to step out for a second. He goes outside, gives it to one of his students. He goes, take this tobacco case, go to the hotel, go to the guy's wife, tell him, please give me the bag that the guy came in with. I have to return it before I get in trouble, and it's a sign that it's really your husband. Is the tobacco case. The guy runs, comes back with the case. He goes, here's your tobacco case, and here's your bag of money. You're not a thief. Just forgot about it. These are just some of the endless stories of endless wisdom that the Chachamim have. But yet, Rabotai, Shlomo HaMelech says in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 19, that lust broken is sweet to the soul, but turning away from sin, turning away from evil, is an abomination to fools. The Gaon Vilna says that there is a certain pleasure that a person gets by overcoming the issues of immorality. When a person hears in a shiur, in a movie, that he's not allowed to waste seed, that she's not allowed to be immodest, and it's hard for her to keep that. She likes to be immodest. She likes the attention. He likes to waste seed. He gets pleasure out of it. But now he knows that it's wrong. He knows that he's not allowed to look there. He knows that he's not allowed to touch there. She knows she's not allowed to be with him. He knows he's not allowed to be with her. And they say, you know what? If I do it, I'm going to get punished severely. I'm going to lose this world and the next world. I have to overcome this sin. But it's hard. It's hard not to look. It's hard not to touch. It's hard not to do all these things that get you attention. But the Gaon Vilna says, in the name of Shlomo HaMelech, when a person overcomes it each and every single time, he was going to look, but he doesn't. He was going to touch, but he doesn't. She was going to do it, but she doesn't. After they overcome that test, there's a certain spiritual pleasure that person gets. Not while they're going through the fire. When they're going through the fire, it's painful. It's painful. He wants to rip the hair out of his head. She wants to lose her mind. She needs the attention. He needs this. He needs that. But when you finally overcome it, Shlomo HaMelech says, you're going to get a certain spiritual pleasure out of it. But be careful. Why? Because the fool that you have next to you, your friend, you're this, you're that, those people around you that are not doing tshuva, whether they are on the internet or they're your peers in school or in your community, those people, those fools that are not doing tshuva, that are still walking around in immodesty, that are still wasting seed, that are still committing immorality, to them your tshuva is an abomination. Your tshuva is an abomination. And Rashi says, why is it an abomination? Why is tshuva an abomination to somebody that did not do tshuva? Because tshuva tells them that not only did you change, tshuva tells him that he needs to change. Tshuva tells her not only that you change, Tshuva tells them that they need to change. Your modesty reminds them that they need to do tshuva. Your protecting your eyes and protecting your speech and telling them not to curse and tell them to go to pray. Those things are reminding them that they need to do tshuva, and therefore, since they're not willing, it's considered abominable what you're doing. They hate it. They hate your tshuva. That's why you have to run away from them. Run away from those people. Why? Because eventually, one of two things will happen to those people. Either they'll do tshuva eventually, BeEzrat HaShem, or they'll continue falling for worse and worse crimes, such as chas v'shalom, what we've mentioned over the last two shiurim, which is the abominable acts that are mentioned in parashat Remorse and parashat Kadusa. The worst things in the world: incest, homosexuality, bestiality, adultery, all of the worst things that everyone knows is wrong, including them, will suddenly become acceptable behavior by those people that continue to reject the truth, so much so that they call it abominable because they see you do it and they don't want to do it. They will continue falling to worse and worse crimes that even if they themselves saw themselves in the future, they will be disgusted by themselves. But by the time they get to that point, it would already be too far. It would already be too far. Surely, as long as a person is still alive, they can always do tshuva. But one of the things that shuts the gate of tshuva in a person's face, meaning that a person has a right to do tshuva, has ability to do tshuva, but one of the things that makes it much, much more difficult to do tshuva is when they accuse kosher people. Needless to say, when they make fun of chachamim, when they go against chachamim, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu shuts off the door of tshuva in their face and say, now you can do tshuva, but you'll have to break the door down. You can't do tshuva normally. For those people that have started doing tshuva, never get too arrogant. Never think for a moment that you are better than anybody, even a person that hasn't done tshuva. Why? Because there are plenty of people that have done tshuva and fell right back. Just in the last 48 hours, unfortunately, I discovered a person that I know from a long time ago, did tshuva 30 years ago, just left his entire family. 30 years they did tshuva already. 30 years, the whole family's already a grandfather already right now. Left his entire family for what? For some woman that's old enough to be the mother of his wife. The mother of his wife. He left his wife, beautiful wife, kids, everything, for some old lady. Why? Yetzara, Rabotai, Yetzara. Don't ever feel too comfortable with where you are. You have to continuously go higher, continuously work harder, continuously strive to be better. Don't think that what you're doing is, oh, I'm better than everybody else. Needless to say, if you see other people doing better than you, aspire to be like them. Don't judge them. Don't think that they're bad because you're not as good or so on. Always try to do better. Always try to do better. You failed, try again. You failed, try again, and again, and again, and again. Needless to say, if you want to get anywhere good in your life, make sure you have some type of da'at Torah, some type of chacham that's directing you in which way to go, whether it's at work, or it's marriage, or it's this, or it's that. Anything that you're doing, you need to have da'at Torah with you, because you can't do it by yourself. You can't do it by yourself. Now, if you're one of those people that is suspecting that all of the rabbis want something from you, I can assure you, no one wants anything from you. Because anything that you give, it's your benefit, not theirs. It's your benefit. Reality is, Rabotai, the Torah is an instruction set. It's an instruction set that takes a lifetime to understand, a lifetime to know what to do with it. What the Chachamim do for us is they save us an entire lifetime of sins by simply giving us the direction now. The more we learn, the more we apply, the better we will be for ourselves. And the price for that is endless. The price for that is priceless. The price for that is something that if we understood what we get out of it as a result, we would literally give everything we have for it. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.